Welcome back to the Graham Stephan Show. So as you probably noticed, there is a growing divide between the rich and the poor that's only getting worse. And this documentary that I came across exemplifies that perfectly. It's got 29 million views, which is probably one of the most viewed videos I've ever reviewed here on the channel, which really also goes to show you just how many people are interested in this topic and just how hard it's hitting. So with that said, you guys, I want to comment on this as soon as you hit the like button and subscribe. That's all I ask for, and in return for doing that, here's the video. How's that? Thank you. Let's begin.
In Southern California, the sun rises over San Diego Bay. Next to a major road in this parking lot, 54-year-old Maria begins her day.
So one thing that I want to point out is that all of this was filmed in 2019, and I'm really curious. We all know what happened right after this. The lockdowns, COVID, the pandemic, stimulus. So I'm curious how all of that impacted these situations going forward. I would love to see an update. Unfortunately, with a lot of these videos, they just film one segment in time, and they never return. They never come back and show people what ended up happening. I would love, if there's a crew out there who could just follow up with people every few years, I would watch it. I think a lot of people would be very invested in hearing these stories.
Just like Maria, around 30 other people sleep overnight in their cars in this free parking lot. To provide some comfort for all these people, an organization has supplied them with a water point, portable toilets, and a small outdoor kitchen.
Seems like a nice place overall, and it's good that they're all able to kind of stick together and kind of watch out for each other. I would imagine that goes a long way. Just feeling a sense of community, I think, is so important.
She was married and lived in this beautiful house. But after 5 years of living together, her blissful marriage suddenly fell apart.
I said, okay, it didn't work, bye-bye. I said, what? No, I don't have a place, no home. I'm a homeless.
That seems a little odd that, well, I guess it depends on the type of marriage, their agreement, the arrangement. You would think that in a marriage like that, she would get maybe half of the assets the guy has, and also if he's higher earning, that she would be entitled to some sort of spousal support. So I'm curious what happened here that she's living in her car. Again, we don't know the situation. He could be worse off than she is. And they split, and she has nothing, he has nothing, they part ways, and they're worse off, without each other. So, curious what happened there.
Maria preferred to leave everything to her ex-husband and turn over a new leaf.
I spoke too soon. Jeez. Sometimes I just let it keep running. There's always a balance in making a video between commenting too soon and just watching too much and then losing it entirely. Why did she leave everything to her ex, who dumped her? Come on. This seems to me a bit of a pride thing that she says, well, fine, I don't need any of your stuff. And she goes off and leaves. Meanwhile, he's sitting on a pile of cash. I think she would be entitled to a chunk of that, if not half of it. At least might help put her on her feet a bit.
Becoming homeless overnight is what these Americans fear most.
You better catch up real quick, or you're going to have a judgment of possession against you and get evicted.
In some states, being late on your rent is no laughing matter. One by one, tenants are evicted at gunpoint.
Yeah, it's very rare that tenants are evicted at gunpoint. I gotta say, I've seen a few evictions in my day. I've never once seen the police come out at gunpoint, ever. The only situations I've seen like that, sometimes they don't know if the people inside are armed, or potentially if there's squatters inside, people are hostile. Those are the situations where you see police go in with guns. But otherwise, most evictions like that take a very long time. The tenants are not paying their rent, a court orders it, and the police go in and forcibly remove people if they haven't done that already. People getting evicted from a house have months to leave, sometimes up to a year to leave. And they know when a court enters a judgment against them, they get more time on top of that. So it's unusual that someone's still in the house by the time the eviction actually goes through.
San Diego is also one of the most dynamic cities in the country. This dream lifestyle was once an everyday reality for Eric. He was a successful computer engineer, earning 7,000 euros a month. Today, at 53 years old, this man lives alone in his car.
You gotta ask yourself too, what happened? There's a lot that happens between earning $7,000 a month and living in your car. Just gotta say it, there's a whole lot of life events here that they've not discussed yet. This could be me speaking too soon, I'm sure we'll find out, but it's a big jump.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
Good.
Here to pick up the slices?
Yep.
I got that for you.
Thank you.
What do you take here?
These are the slices that they have in their display that they have them for too long, then they put them in the fridge for me so that they donate them.
I wish more companies would do that. It irks me. When I see wasted food, I cannot stand it. Ever. I hate it because I see how many people are out there starving, and the amount of waste that's in food, I think is just unacceptable. That's why anytime I'm out at a restaurant, I always get the food to go. I feel so bad. If there's one little morsel of food that's left on the plate that's not eaten, I'll eat it. I don't want it to go to waste. I wish a lot of these companies and restaurants are able to take the food that's uneaten, put it away, have someone else consume it. Otherwise, it's being thrown away, it's rotting, it's going to waste. At least let somebody eat it.
In his former life, Eric also worked a lot, but 4 years ago he suffered a burnout.
After several years of just dealing with doctors and burning through my savings, I ended up basically burning through everything and couldn't afford to stay in an apartment any longer.
Yeah, okay, so there we go. That's another problem with the United States. Health insurance is horrible. It's so expensive. If you have to pay out of pocket, it could be tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. How is this guy supposed to pay for it? I don't get it. So that, unfortunately, is a shame. It's also a bit of a curiosity to me why he wouldn't be able to get back in the field that was paying him $7,000 a month. I would imagine, I could be wrong, I'm saying this without experience, okay? I would imagine if you're making $7,000 a month, you should be able to get back into a field earning even $5,000 a month. Even if you're out for a few years, assuming he left on good terms and he's, at least able to learn as he goes, I can't see him not being able to make 60 grand a year with that sort of training.
California is a state of stark contrasts. Despite being the 5th largest economy in the world, a growing number of its workers can no longer afford a place to live.
Here's the thing, though. It was recently found that 82% of homeless people in California are experiencing mental illness. And I think that's a significant portion of it, at least visually, from what I have seen. Growing up in Los Angeles, a big portion of those people desperately need mental health services. I think that's something that's underfunded. There should be more programs out there to help people on the street mentally who just cannot take care of themselves. So I think something like that is a big part of why people are homeless. And they gravitate towards Los Angeles because of the weather. It's just a great place to be year-round. You don't have to worry about it being too hot or too cold. It's always going to be 75 and sunny.
In the state of Virginia, the law is strict. If the rent is late by 5 days, the landlord has the right to begin the eviction process. The threatened tenants have 1 week to settle their debts. Otherwise, they face eviction by force.
Yeah, okay, so they left out so much there, so much. So here's how the eviction process works. When a tenant is late on their rent, they're usually given a 3-day notice to pay or quit. That's just a formal notice that's given by the landlord, usually posted on the door, and it says, hey, if you don't pay your rent in full in the next 3 days, or reach out to us in some capacity, work out a payment plan, we're gonna go forward with an eviction. Then what they do after the 3 days, the landlord goes down to the court and files eviction paperwork. The court then takes anywhere between, 2 months to sometimes a year to review that paperwork. The tenant has a chance to respond. The tenant can go and get their own legal representation. They could go back and forth for a while. And then if there's still no resolution, then it goes down to a judge. The judge sits there with the landlord and the tenant. The tenant could plead their case. The landlord could plead their case. They look over the lease agreement. They look over the terms. And then the landlord could say, all right, we side with the landlord or we side with the tenant. It's never a case where the tenant misses their rent. And then 30 days later, the landlord's like, all right, forcibly remove you with a police officer. That doesn't happen.
The tenant is not currently at home, and clearly, they've not had time to vacate the premises. As for the landlord, he immediately reclaims his property.
Check everything.
I'm checking the windows now
Why?
to make sure the house is secure.
Yeah, see, I've heard stories too that after a tenant's been evicted, they'll just break back into the property and then become a squatter after that, and they have to get him out again. So, you want to make sure the house is secured. I'd like to hear the landlord's perspective on this. Maybe he's been fighting with them for years. Maybe they have not paid anything at all since they moved in. Maybe this old guy's struggling. Maybe he relies on this to pay his bills. Maybe he's saved up his entire life to buy a rental property. Maybe he used to live there, moved out to something else into, a smaller place, rented this out for cash flow, and now his tenant's not paying.
Do I think it's harsh? No, he got to do what he got to do, and I got to do what I got to do.
This is the only way to make the tenant move?
That's up to her, if that's the only way. She said she would move before this. Didn't move.
Maybe she had nowhere to go.
She never did say that. to me.
See, I want to hear his side of the perspective too. I don't think they're sharing that because at the end of the day, this is a business agreement between two people. The tenant has promised to pay the rent. The landlord has agreed to provide housing. If in any agreement, one side doesn't uphold the contract can be canceled. The agreement is null. And, when it comes to housing, the same thing applies. If the tenant does not pay their rent or doesn't abide by the terms of a contract, the contract is no more. Just like with any business, no matter what you do, you have to abide by the contract.
Budget hotels on the outskirts of the city have become a refuge for those who've been kicked out of their homes. Among them is David, a 38-year-old gardener.
This is our bedroom, living room. This is the little kitchen, which I ain't cleaned the dishes yet. We hung out, played video games.
Now, I'm curious because I've heard that when you keep a tidy space around you and you actually clean, your mind tends to be cleaner as well. You tend to think better, produce better results. I'm curious if he spent like half a day cleaning his place, would that lead to better results elsewhere in his life? Just saying, I've experienced it myself too, usually having a clean place. It brings mental clarity that just can't be accomplished otherwise. So I'd be curious on this.
They remain trapped in this tiny room because their past eviction continues to haunt them.
You get so beat down by going to places and stuff. They're not giving you a place because they're like, oh, you had an eviction. Shows that you didn't pay this like 2 months or something like that.
That is a very good point. It is very difficult to rent after an eviction. Extremely difficult. Why would a landlord want to take the risk? So for him to overcome that, unfortunately, he's got to probably pay a larger security deposit. It's going to cost him more money, or he's got to find a landlord who's really, really accommodating, or maybe he could get a co-signer, find someone who could vouch for him. But yeah, that will be tough.
It's almost unthinkable in many parts of the world, but here landlords are able to access the past of bad tenants with a few simple clicks. A systematic surveillance system that has been denounced by Martin Wegbright, a lawyer and defense attorney for tenants.
It's not a surveillance system, okay? It's checking someone's rental history to see whether or not they've been evicted. If they're a good or bad tenant, whether they've wouldn't you want to know? If you're going to business with somebody, wouldn't you want to know, hey, have they ever breached the contract before? Do they have a history of breaching contracts? Do they have a history of, being late with their deliverables? Just like with anybody. Just like with an employee, you want to see references if you're hiring somebody. You want to make sure that they are who you think they are. So, I don't know. I don't see this as a surveillance system. But then again, as a landlord, easy for me to say that.
Anyone can go on to this database and look at it, and you can search by name. Oh, Mary Gillespie, and you can see 5 unlawful detainers. So if I'm a landlord, I can look at that and say, well, that was 10 years ago, but I think she's too much of a risk. I don't want to rent to her.
So here's what I tell to tenants, and I've represented tenants in the exact same situation. If they're serious about renting a place, write a really nice letter. Write a letter to the landlord and just say, hey, here's my past tenant experience. Here's what happened. Here's why I was late. This is the situation. Here's the reasons it'll never happen again. A letter goes a long way in humanizing the situation and both explaining this so the landlord won't see this and just automatically be turned off.
This is the mobile home of 58-year-old Sirenia Collins. Sirenia no longer works following a long-term illness, and her financial difficulties have gotten worse since she took in her niece. Jennifer is an unemployed single mother who has 3 children to take care of.
So what I find interesting is that Dave Ramsey said there are 3 things that you got to do to practically guarantee avoiding poverty. Number 1 is graduating from high school. Number 2 is waiting until you're married to have kids. And number 3 is waiting to have kids after the age of 20. If you could do those things, you're practically guaranteed not to fall into poverty, because not abiding by those things generally weighs you down a lot. And I see this situation here. 3 kids is substantial to take care of on your own without any support system beyond a parent who's also barely getting by. It'd be very difficult.
Even though the healthcare system improved under previous President Barack Obama, 28 million Americans remain without any insurance coverage. Medical fees in the US are the most expensive in the world and unaffordable for a large section of the population.
Yeah, again, healthcare is so expensive, and it just seems like the only one who's winning in that is the insurance companies. They're the only ones really coming out ahead with this current system. Everyone else, it's like you get bombarded with these crazy high fees, and it's so difficult to get anything done. A lot of the times, I would much rather just pay out of pocket than deal with the whole system because it's so inefficient. I can't stand it. So for some reason, this part got copyright striked. It was the only part of the entire video that this was the case. But anyway, in this scene, people are getting free healthcare. The healthcare comes out every few months. Volunteers go and they help people remove teeth, get dental work done, all that stuff. That's wild. Now, I'm wondering how many people in here are trainees, where it's just, you know, they need someone to practice on, and this is it. And the care that these people are receiving is like top notch. I've heard, by the way, a lot of the times these doctors in training do just as good work as the surgeons who have been doing it for like 10, 15 years. It's incredible. I think something like this, valuable for people to learn, people to get free healthcare in return. I'm all for it.
She'll be seen to by a young student soon to complete his medical degree. Before treating Sirenia, he's had time to familiarize himself with the job.
So how many tooth did you extract today?
I've extracted about 15 teeth today.
Wow, see, yeah, a lot of these are students in training about to graduate. They get the experience. That is wild, how many extractions. You know, it goes to show you just how important brushing your teeth is, flossing on a regular basis, dental hygiene, just having good hygiene. Can prevent so many things, and the bacteria that builds up in your mouth. You really want to brush your teeth twice a day. Floss like 2 to 3 times a day, if you can, at minimum. I carry around those little flossers with me everywhere. Every time I eat, I just like floss afterwards. And now I can't not do it.
38-year-old Elvis is appalled at how conditions in LA have continued to deteriorate in recent years.
It's not a third world country. It's one of the richest countries in the world. It's hard to fathom that, like, every single day, this is how people live.
Yeah, and this has only gotten worse since COVID. I think homelessness is up 50% in Los Angeles since 2020, which is staggering. So many people moved to California during COVID. This homelessness just exploded there. It's pretty bad.
To help these people, Elvis wants to do more than just bring them bottles of water. His main project is hidden away in the yard of this church. He came up with the idea to build small wooden houses for the homeless.
Yeah, see, I like this, but then California's gonna say, oh, they don't fit zoning requirements. You have to shut them down. It's the thing with California, again, so inefficient. These policies that they come up with just do nothing. It's red tape, and it takes years to get anything done, and then when it gets done finally, it's just like, it's a money suck. It's just money goes in, we don't know where it goes, and meanwhile, the people running these things often make 6 figures, $100,000 to $250,000 a year. They have no real incentive to solve the issue, so it's just bad. It's bad all the way around.
Each cabin costs the equivalent of €1,000, financed by donations collected online. But Elvis's well-meaning initiative is illegal. The mayor of Los Angeles has banned him from installing his cabins on the sidewalks of the city. Elvis will carry on regardless.
See, yeah, I get that. You can't put that on the sidewalk. That's where people are supposed to walk. So it's a pedestrian walkway. It's how people get around. If you're in a wheelchair, and you come up there, and then you see this big honking thing in the middle of the sidewalk, what are you going to do? Go in the street? Try to find a way around? Just backpedal? Go in the street? Try to go right? You can't do it. You can't put these on the street. There should be some empty land, an unused parking lot, something where you could kind of stack these things. But I agree. I don't think a sidewalk is for them.
This morning, he's delivering one of them to a homeless couple who very much need it. Krista is a 32-year-old and is 3 months pregnant. She lives on the curb of the sidewalk with her partner, Andre. For 4 years now, the couple have been sleeping in this tiny cart that is a health hazard on wheels.
All right, I'm concerned about the child, okay? How are they supposed to take care of the child here? Is this a case where a child goes up for adoption? I can't imagine they just allow a child to be living on the streets like that when he's talking about like bed bugs and issues. I don't know in that sort of situation.
While the president claims America has never been so great, 40 million of Trump's fellow citizens are still caught in the clutches of poverty.
So with that said, you guys, let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Unlike this video where the comments are turned off, the comments are not turned off here. So if you want to share your thoughts on this, let me know what you think. I'm open to hearing other perspectives. As always, also, feel free to add me on Snapchat and Instagram. And don't forget that you could get some free stocks worth all the way up to a few $1,000s when you make a deposit with the paid affiliate link down below in the description. Let me know which free stocks you get. It's going to take you like 10 minutes to do. Tends to be a pretty good ROI for the free stocks. So enjoy. Thank you so much, and until next time.